Hey guys, it's CS Joseph with csjoseph.life doing the April 2020 Ruby conference. Welcome to tonight's conference. The particular topic that we're going to be discussing this evening is Introduction to Quartets, Cognitive Quartets, and how those affect romantic compatibility. If you guys remember the last conference, we've been discussing, like dating tips, etc., and the importance of dating, and how how to maximize your dating capabilities. I have not really been speaking very much, about like romantic compatibility per se, because it's very different. The reason why is because it's very impacted by human nurture. And we've also been discussing this week, like in season 17, about how people's different life stages, etc., are also directly impacted with that. So, with human nurture, etc. Well, it's no different than romantic compatibility. So, what I am going to provide tonight is basically expose an area of incompatibility with people, two areas of incompatibility that a lot of people are not really aware of, and show you how compatibility may work on paper, but in practicality, it's not always the case. And I hope that by the end of this conference, everyone will present will be able to learn one of the reasons why the bronze pair, for example, is the most common marriage and most successful romantic relationship on paper, statistically speaking, for each of the 16 types. So we're going to be going into kind of like how all of that works for the most part. So let's get right down to it. We're gonna do. Let's do. Do some rainbow color with that because why not? April 2020 Ruby conference. Awesome. So the April 2020 Ruby conference. All right. So we're gonna be talking about. Let's get a nice little tiny mini agenda here. We're gonna be talking about quartets. We're going to be talking about romantic compatibility. And we're going to be talking about typical. We're going to be talking about atypical. Then we're going to be talking about reality. And then we're going to have Chase's opinion, my look at it. And then we're also going to be looking at incompatibility as well, and how the quartets figure that out. So, but let's go in there. Oh, and also, guys, we will have a little bit of Q&A at the end for this. On to the show here. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, so the quartets. So let's look at quartets. So both of them. I'm gonna do ISFP, ESFJ at first. So let's do that. All right. So let's do that. So, excuse the really terrible drawing, by the way. And then awesome. And then we're gonna do this one over here. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have so ISFP, ego, ESFJ, unconscious, ENTJ, subconscious, and they have, INTP, superego. And then over here, we have ESFJ, ego, ENTJ, superego, INTP, subconscious, and ISFP, shadow. And this is typically it's a golden pair. Yay, we have a golden pair. Well, and these are, on paper, highest romantic compatibility, right? Highest romantic compatibility on paper. Okay, remember, on paper. Well, we also know that you have the highest highs, and then you have the lowest lows as well. And it just becomes like this huge wavelength thing within here. Whereas normal, it's kind of more in the center for a relationship, right? Highest highs, lowest lows. So, can anyone in the audience, has anyone realized where I'm going with this? When we're looking at golden pairs, what exactly is the problem? Can you guys see what the problem is here in a golden pair? Can you guys identify what the main issue is? I'll give you guys a hint. What is the main problem that people have with relationships when they're in the relationship with somebody within their own quadra? Like, say, for example, someone in a relationship, like, say, if you're an ISFP, you'd be in a relationship with a fellow wayfarer, right? So can anyone take a guess as to what the problem is here with the golden pair? What is the one thing? Yes, they have the same quartet. Thank you, Shmoney. Yes, they have the same quartet. What does that mean? So what is a quartet? A quartet is basically you have the exact same four sides of the mind as these four sides of your mind, your four sides in total equals your quartet, right? But in a golden pair, even though you have highest cognitive synchronicity, you still end up having potential for severe romantic incompatibility because both of you share the same exact four types in your heads, which can lead to competition. And it especially is bad if either both of you are having the same cognitive focus. If you're both shadow focused or both subconscious focused, it creates a lot of conflict. That's why in the context of a golden pair, you have no choice but to have different cognitive focus or you're screwed, basically, within a golden pair. Otherwise, your lowest lows will cause the relationship to become a problem. But let's actually analyze this a little bit further. Let's switch out somebody else, right? Let's look at a silver pair. Let's look at a silver pair within this within the context of this example. So a silver pair for an ISFP, a little bit different. So a silver pair is the ISFJ, right? And then we have the ENTP. And then we have the ESFP. And then we have the INTJ. Now, this is where things get interesting. According to cognitive synchronicity, they don't have as much, synchronicity or highest romantic compatibility, etc. But in this context of a silver pair, let me actually fix that. Since this is a silver pair now, this silver pair, they have a different quartet. They have different types. What this basically means is that the other person can actually cover a lot of the bases that the other person can't, because the fact that they have so many different personas, so many different types represented within their four sides of mind, within their quartet, basically, this changes romantic compatibility. And this is why, technically, even though golden pair is highest romantic compatibility on paper, silver pairs end up having far more successful relationships over time than, say, a golden pair, right? Well, let's look at it even further. Let's look at the bronze pair. Okay, bronze pair, and then we're going to be going through like the top 5 compatibilities, at least according to cognitive synchronicity. Then we're going to be showing some other issues along with it. So let's look at a bronze pair. Good old bronze. And with ISFP, that's going to be the ENTP. It's kind of interesting, though, that the ENTP is the bronze pair, and it's not the INTP that's the bronze pair. Well, the reason for that is because the ENTP's functions end up lining up in a more favorable way, right? Now, it's the same quartet that it was previously, but this is a bronze pair. Same quartet. Okay, yeah. And then ESFP, and then INTJ. Okay, fair enough. We have our bronze pair now. But again, what's the difference? Why is it so much more important? Well, within the context of this relationship, as you guys are aware, the cognitive functions don't necessarily line up. There isn't much things. But why isn't it the INTP? Well, here's why, and I'm actually going to break this down into functions. So hang in there, guys, with these little squares here. What happens when you do? We're going to call it the enigma relationship. So the enigma. Okay, this is kind of a socionics term. You can also learn more about these types of relationships and their like what label they are at typelogic.com. TypeLogic was one of the very first resources that I used when learning about MBTI many years ago. I'm surprised the website still exists. It's one of my very first few sources that I utilized when learning about all this. But typelogic.com. It's what my ESTP mentor taught me through that site. But let's look at an enigma pair now. Well, what's the problem with the enigma pair? It's pretty freaking obvious, basically, if you guys haven't figured it out already. But from an enigma pair standpoint, well, guess what? You find yourself right back where you started. Like literally right back where you started. INTP, ENTJ, and then ESFJ, and then ISFP. So do you guys see the pattern? The golden pair, or the enigma relationship, the enigma pair is also another fancy term for superego relationship in terms of romantic compatibility. I never recommend anyone be in a superego relationship. I was in a superego relationship when I was married to my ex-wife, who is an ESFP, which is a serious issue. But if you look at it from the perspective of an ISFP ego at this point, from the ego, you'll notice that, between the golden and the enigma pair, they all have the exact same quartet. They have the exact same 4 types in their heads, which contributes to incompatibility. This actually creates a lot of problems because it allows for more competition to actually occur within the brain, within the head. This it is known. The only reason the golden pair is able to get around this, is because of their super high cognitive synchronicity. That's the only real advantage that the golden pair has. And yes, that's enough to have a great sexual relationship with, a great marriage with. It's that's just kind of how it goes, right? That's a long time ago. It's like 15 years ago. So good times, Mr. Name My Taco. So are you guys starting to see this at this point where, like, hey, the quartet really is a big deal when it comes to romantic compatibility. It's a serious deal. So let's go even further. Let's break it down into cognitive functions now. This time we're going to do it from the perspective of an ENFP for good old Marcelino here. So, and yes, I am leading up to something, and there is a moral of the story. You'll see. Just got to do a lot of setup first before I get to the punchline. All right. So, all right. We're gonna start with any hero. FITESI okay? And then after that, we're going to do NIFETISENEFITESI, okay? What is that? That's an INFJ, okay? This is, oops, this is an ENFP, okay? You know, and then we're going to do another one next to the ENFP. We're going to do FE, NI, SE, TI, and then FI, NE, SI, TE. And this is an ENFJ, okay? ENFJ. And then we have gold, silver, right? Awesome. But what happens when we go further than that? Well, let's go over here again. All right, and then lots of whiteboarding today, guys. Thank you for your patience. We're going to do NEFI, TE, SI, NIFE, TI, SE. Okay, and then this time we're going to do the Enigma, and then the bronze pair as a result. And then we're going to go even further than that, beyond that as well. I will add over here NITE, FI, SE, NE, TI, FE, SI. This is an INTJ, okay? This is also known as the pedagogue, okay? Pedagogue, okay? And then over here, I'll go back again. We're going to try green, or well, we'll just do rainbow color, because why the hell not, right? I mean, why wouldn't we? And then we'd have TI, SE, NIFE, TE, SI, NE, FI. That is an ISTP. That is the bronze for the ENFP, right? And then we're going to do the Enigma over here, okay? Enigma. And we're going to do some comparing and contrasting with this. What is the Enigma? Okay, so any hero, so that would basically mean SI hero, so, or SE hero, excuse me. So that would be SE, TI, FE, NI, and then it would be SITE, FI, NE, which is the ESTP. Okay. These are technically, on paper, the absolute best sexual relationships that an ENFP could possibly have. Right here. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. These 5 types, these 5 relationships. Gold, silver, bronze, enigma, pedagogue, essentially. These are them. And then you could also maybe make the the claim for the benefactor as well. You could also put in the benefactor potentially, but which would basically be ENTJ. So put ENTJ in there. Technically argue benefactor, which, I mean, they're okay. I mean, we'll get over it, but it's not the best. It's just really not the best. However, when you start to put things in perspective, things can actually change, and it gets a little bit interesting. Okay. So, romantic compatibility is made of a mishmash of different things. And a lot of people are like, well, how the hell do I rank out all of the types in terms of what's best from worst? You can do it from basic cognitive synchronicity, but it's not good enough. You just can't. It really, really cannot do that. It works, and yes, it works pretty well, but the problem is that cognitive synchronicity alone does not calculate for quartets. It also, and while it helps you deal with the fact that a lot of the cognitive functions are not lining up, because let's do a color of some kind, maybe a yellow highlighter. I hope this works. Okay, yeah, it works great, awesome. So ENFP, we're going to start at ENFP right here, okay? Now watch where the energy flows. Watch the energy flow, okay? So the NE is going to go for the NI, and it's going for the NI, right? And then it's going for the NI, right? NE is also up here, and it's going for that NI, and he's going over here for the NI, you know. So I'm actually going to like erase this piece here because it's kind of like irrelevant, you know. So the NE is going for this NI because it's right there. It's going for this NI as well. It's also going directly for this NI, you know. And then it's going down here for this NI, right? Okay, pretty standard. Pessimistic versus optimistic functions. Hold on, Dr. J. I'm getting there. Guys, just bear with me. This is so much whiteboarding right now. I know it's annoying, but just bear with me. I gotta add in some rules at the bottom here. So we have cognitive synchronicity, okay? Cognitive sync. And that's like number 1. Number 2 is sexual compatibility. Okay. Number 3 is emotional compatibility. And number 4 is quartets. Okay. Basically in that order. Now, there have been some arguments that quartets actually go above emotional compatibility. And I've gotten into so many debates with people about this, including my mentors. So this is basically the order that people really think that the priority system goes through. That's not really the case. Nope. That's not the case. Reality is it's the other way around. A lot of people think I'm crazy. And you know what? You guys may think I'm crazy as well. But emotional compatibility, I actually rank as 4th. Now, you have to take that with a grain of salt because I'm FI Trickster. And I'm using a lot of anecdotal evidence here. So, and it is biased. So, I'm throwing that out there. But I'll explain my reasoning and I'll let you guys make the decision, okay? This is pretty cutting edge right now. So this might be like one of the more brainier Ruby conferences we've ever done. So just hang in there. All right. So we got gold, silver, bronze, enigma, pedagogue, benefactor, all present within the context of this thing. But here's the problem. Which types, and I'm going to use red ink to put this, which types are the ones that have opposing quartets? Now, an opposing quartet is when you have the same quartet. Also, I forgot to put number 5 down here. I'm so sorry, guys. Quadra. Quadra is number 5. So remember, socionics would teach that romantic compatibility comes from people who are within your own quadra. Socionics teaches duality. It teaches that you should have sexual or intimate relationships with people within your own quadra. That is absolute horseshit. It is absolute horseshit. Horseshit and chicanery. And I'm quoting Josh Reeves when I say that. And no, I've never watched a show of Josh Reeves ever. Just making that clear. But I know that's what he says. It is horseshit and chicanery. Don't even pay any attention to that. So quadra, obviously, you don't want anyone in the same quadra. So, but we've already done that because these are like the best possible sexual relationships that an ENFP could have. And again, those are gold, silver, bronze, enigma, which represents, within their, and then pedagogue and benefactor. Okay. So those are the 6 relationships that any ENFP, or anyone for that matter, would want to seek a sexual relationship from. The reason why is because, in general, they're really maximizing sexual compatibility more than anything, which is which you have to do. The reason why is you cannot communicate your way out of bad sex. You either have the sexual chemistry or you don't. So just keep that in mind. However, there's some problems with following it through just cognitive synchronicity, and through cognitive synchronicity, you rely solely on sexual compatibility and emotional compatibility. What is sexual compatibility? Sexual compatibility is when your perception functions line up either directly across from each other, or they are one slot down, or maybe 2 slots down. You could even argue 4 slots down. What does that mean? That means sexual compatibility is when you have the opposite function, perception function, as your sexual partner within the top 4 functions of your head. Okay, that's how that works. Which means you have, if you're an NISE user, the person you're having sex with is an NESI user, and your functions and their functions are both in your ego. Okay, which means technically an ESTP would have sexual compatibility with an ENTP. Oh wait, that's like my marriage. Okay, and yes, it's fantastic in bed. And especially as she gets older and she explores more for INFJ side, it really helps tap into that super mega high sexual compatibility that the pedagogue relationship has, right? Really, really important. Emotional compatibility, though, you can always communicate your way through emotional compatibility. I've said this so many times. Emotional compatibility comes from when the judgment functions are lining up in top of the in the head, right? This is literally how this works. However, there's a lot of problems that comes from this, and I mean a lot of problems. So let's start playing a fun little elimination game. We know through cognitive synchronicity that golden pair is technically the highest compatibility on paper, but what happens if you start eliminating relationships based on quartet? Well, that means the golden pair ends up removed. That also means the enigma ends up removed entirely, just completely entirely. Let me verify one other thing. Yeah, ISTP, yeah, and then ENFJ, no, INTJ, no. Which basically ends up leaving behind the following. Okay, you have silver, bronze, pedagogue, and benefactor. Now, I used to be in a benefactor relationship because I was in a relationship with an ENFJ when I first started this YouTube channel. Okay, it's got the same sexual compatibility as a silver relationship, but it has like no emotional compatibility. And that's why it's kind of like a worse off pedagogue relationship, because with pedagogue relationship, you still have the benefit of absolute highest possible sexual compatibility, while also having the benefit of having a completely different quartet than you. Why is this important? Well, I gotta bring up the type grid. I'll show you guys here in a second. We'll get to the type grid in a second here. To show you a little bit more on the details. But then, silver and bronze are there. Now, if you guys remember when I was talking about social compatibility back in the day, I used to say, how silver relationships end up actually being a bit more successful than gold relationships. Well, one of the reasons why is because when you have all of your functions directly across from the other, you can read each other like a book. It can create competition, and it can create a form of disrespect within the relationship. But because in a silver relationship, they're like they're off-centered by one, there is built-in respect. However, when you have the cognitive functions lining up with each other, you're having an optimistic function paired up with a pessimistic function, which can create a little bit more, conflict. However, when you look at the bronze relationship, it's optimistic to optimistic when the cognitive functions line up all the way across the board. That way, you're getting your sexual needs and your emotional needs. Why is that necessary? Think about it this way. When cognitive functions are developing and you have the hero function develop first. Like in a child, like you have a child, okay, and then boom, there's this child, his hero function develops. What's the next function that develops? The child function, right? Then the inferior, then the parent. Oftentimes in people with their youth, they end up having a cognitive loop because their parent function is underdeveloped. Dave Superpowers talks about this a lot. I was talking about it long before he was. My mentors and I were talking about it way long before he was, but whatever. But he calls it jumping or jumpers. No, they're not jumpers. They're just people who don't have their parent function developed, and they haven't developed personal responsibility yet, as we've learned in season 19. Okay, so in that particular scenario, a bronze pair relationship is something truly special from a romantic compatibility standpoint that it is able to do unlike any other relationship, because it literally recreates the feeling of a cognitive loop, that feeling that you had of not really of youth, of not having your parent function and being irresponsible. Why? Because it's your child function teaming up with their hero, and their child function teaming up with your hero. This is the number one reason, this advantage is the number one reason why the bronze pair is the most common marriage for each of all the types. There's another reason. The other reason is because they can't quite read each other like a book per se. They kind of can, because it's like, oh, he's just being childish right now, but he's just being cute. You know what I'm saying? But they have a higher level of love, more so than respect. Because when you look at it down like this, silver is all about respect. This is more of like a respect relationship. Whereas bronze is more of a love relationship. I literally should have used the different colors for that. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas this relationship is all about being, hey, awesome, thank you. Dinner is served. Oh, and I got a cookie out of it. Thank you, Beatty. God, her cookies are so good. So, oh, they're really gooey. I like that. I think that there's a little hair in there. Okay. Is the ISTP bronze pair similar to an ISFP? Absolutely it is. So the ISTP bronze pair, if you look it up here, ISTP bronze is ENFP bronze. ISFP bronze would be with an ENTP. So like Dr. J, you and me, you know, ENTP, ISF, you know, or me and Shmoney. That's right, me and Shmoney. You know, we're a bronze pair. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, like, that's where that comes from. So the bronze pair ends up able to express their emotional compatibility and their sexual compatibility more so in a loving way, whereas a silver pair actually expresses it more so in a respectful way. Well, this is where it gets even more insane. When you start considering, okay, and I'm going to put, I didn't have enough room for it. Here's number 6 that you have to consider yourself. The masculine and the feminine of the quartets. So I'm triple feminine with my quartet. So I have 3 feminine types in there. So it would be best if I was in a relationship with somebody that was, you know, 3 times masculine to that point. So it's a whole other level of considering romantic compatibility. Silver, again, is more about respect in the relationship, because it's also the balance between, you know, masculine or feminine sides of the mind, essentially, right? It's more of respect. And ends up having a little bit more shoulder to shoulder to it. While it is a face-to-face relationship, it has its yin and yang, the yang shoulder face-to-face approach, but then it has the yin shoulder to shoulder approach within it as well. So it's all about it is a relationship that is able to express a lot of respect. So some people within their human nurture who are looking for relationships to be more respected, they end up preferring a silver pair, right? And sometimes people prefer a golden pair because it's like they've never had anyone understand them their whole life, and they meet that golden pair, and that golden pair person also has a similar nurtural background as well, and it's like literally perfect, and it works out for them. But a bronze pair is special because it actually allows people to kind of hide a little bit in their relationships. It allows them to be more secure in themselves, and it's more based on love and, oh, you're really cute. It's not so much respect. Whereas like silver is like, it's all business in silver in a lot of ways. And in a golden pair relationship, like, whoa, it's like heavy business because we're like able to read each other like a book. Bronze pair, it's a special kind of relationship that allows people to grow, but they also have the freedom to be themselves, and they're not so subject to the judgments of the emotional compatibility issues. Whereas in a silver pair, performance and capability, there's a lot more. The emotional compatibility has a lot more fervor to it. It's a lot more pressure, right? Golden pair, while it is so successful and has such high fireworks, it also is an extremely high pressure relationship. A silver relationship, it's decently pressured as well, but bronze pair, it kind of seems to be like this perfect mishmash of balance between the two in terms of pressure, etc., right? So is ENFP triple feminine? So they have, no, that's not triple feminine at all, because you have INFJ and you have ESTP within their quartet. So it's half feminine, half masculine, I believe. Or no, ISTJ. No, they're triple masculine technically within their quartet with a feminine ego. Excuse me. So anyway, so again, this is why bronze pairs are statistically the most common and most successful marriages out of all the types, hands down. Because human nurture can get in the way of gold relationships and silver relationships, because they can be pretty all business in some cases. And the gold one has a lot of pressure because they have the same quartet. They have the same sides of the mind, which has latent incompatibility. Just like being in the same quadra with somebody has insane amounts of incompatibility. So the golden pair, over time, may not actually be the best choice. So when you consider human nurture and people's backgrounds, golden pair, in Chase's opinion, is not actually the highest per se when you look at practicality. When you're combining romantic compatibility with practicality, the golden pair would not be my first choice at all. It would definitely not be my first choice. On paper, it is the first choice. Absolutely it is. On paper, it is. Because cognitive synchronicity is just that strong. However, like I said, highest highs, lowest lows. You can get to the absolute lowest lows in a golden pair. I was in 2 golden pair relationships in my time. In both cases, each woman tried to get some serious ISFJ superego revenge and tried to ruin my life in both cases, right? That happened. Like I said, highest highs, lowest lows. So you have to really make a decision based on wisdom. Silver relationships don't have as much pressure, and at least they have a different quartet, but it still has enough pressure, and it's more so about conveying respect to one another than it is actually having a loving relationship. Now, this helps with relationships where women are a little bit more masculine with their side, like say, like an ENTP, ENTJ relationship, and the woman was an ENTJ. she's masculine, so she really wants that level of respect from a man. So with her nurture in her life, she may opt for a silver pair as her preferred kind of pair. So think about it, guys, this way. Romantic compatibility, at the end of the day, while there are a lot of things that support everything with what's the highest compatibility with cognitive synchronicity and everything, at the end of the day, human nurture impacts the four sides of the mind so powerfully that people may see and have opportunities to have relationships with their golden pair, but they may decide to opt out. Probably because they've experienced those lowest lows, or probably because they're kind of bored with someone having the same quartet as they, and they want to go outside of that and kind of live life differently. So that ends up happening. Let's go forward. Let's look at the pedagogue relationship. Okay, pedagogue relationship is all about personal growth for both people involved. Personal growth. And it has the ability to have the highest highs again and a little bit of the lowest lows. But it's a little bit of the highest highs because they still have the highest sexual compatibility. But they actually have a high amount of emotional incompatibility. But they can get over that super high emotional incompatibility if they just switch roles. Whereas, like, for example, an ENFP INTJ relationship, the ENFP the INTJ needs to show appreciation for the ENFP and what the ENFP does, and the INTJ needs to listen to the or excuse me, it's really hard. I fumbled over myself there. ENTP INFJ relationship. The INFJ needs to show appreciation for the ENTP, and the ENTP needs to listen to the INFJ, basically, right? They're switching emotional roles, and as soon as they do that, and they can learn how to do that with their critic functions if their shadow is developed. Pedagogue relationship takes a lot more effort, but in the long run, the benefits are amazing, and you actually can have a mishmash of respect and love over time if you're willing to put in a lot of work in the beginning. The benefactor relationship, well, it ends up being a lot about respect as well, because it's so similar to the silver pair, basically. Very similar to the silver pair, but it's like a little bit, just a tiny amount of love. It's not much. It's not capital love. It's just a little bit. And also, there's a lot of emotional incompatibility, which causes the benefactor to jump to conclusions about the other person. And while they'll do their best to try to solve everything in the bedroom, over time, the relationship could potentially decay. However, it's still a different quartet entirely. It's still a completely different quartet within the four sides of the mind. And technically, based on this model, it would still be a better relationship than a golden pair or an enigma if you're going to be judging based on quartet, based on someone's nurture, okay? This is a lot to take in. It's so much to, keep track of. What is the bottom line? Well, let's look at that. Let's look at the bottom line. All right. So we've already discussed typical, and we just discussed atypical. Let's look at Chase's opinion. Let's look at Chase's opinion right now. So Chase's opinion. Actually, let's look at reality first. So I'm gonna draw. Let's look at reality. As close to reality as I can get it, and then we'll look at Chase's opinion. So the reality of the situation is that in order to maximize the absolute best from romantic compatibility, people have different ways of going about it. But in terms of reality, the bronze pair basically ends up beating out everything else. Just completely and totally, utterly owning it. The bronze pair for sure. Compatibility-wise, cognitive synchronicity-wise, it's the most balanced. Followed by the silver pair, for sure. Third, this is when it kind of gets a little bit interesting. Third, it would be the pedagogue relationship. And fourth would be the golden pair here. And then fifth would be the benefactor. And then sixth would be the, the enigma, technically, even though I don't recommend that whatsoever. Reality. So, based on my coaching practice, the statistics that I've gathered from couples, like I keep a spreadsheet of couples that I coach within my coaching practice and people that I've been working with for a bunch of years. I always update the spreadsheet and I keep track of what their relationships are, what the status of the relationships are, which ones are the successful, etc. But in general, in terms of, raw data of success versus not success, this is kind of more of what it looks like. I will like to say, though, in terms of success, that there is, at times, I have noticed that these two numbers switch. So I want to provide this caveat here. These two numbers can switch. Sometimes the pedagogue ends up beating out the silver pair. So these have a tendency to switch. So if you guys are trying to look at romantic compatibility, based on my research, this is, in terms of what reality is based on the research that I've done, and what I have so far, this is what I've been able to come up with in terms of like the most successful relationships. The golden pair is great. It's got great emotional compatibility, great sexual compatibility, but it's the same quartet. It could be a serious problem over time. The competition in there is difficult, and it can be a problem. It just really can be a problem. Whereas the bronze pair, because you have optimistic to optimistic functions, it's great. Silver has optimistic to pessimistic functions. That can be an issue. Pedagogue, they have a direct lineup with the sexual compatibility. You just have to learn how to communicate your way through the emotional compatibility. And it would seem that pedagogue relationships end up having a little bit more success over the golden pair over time. And then benefactor comes in, and benefactor is always better than the enigma. The enigma relationship or the superego relationship is just not that great. It's really not that great. However, human nurture still comes in here, guys. Don't forget, while this represents the statistics that I have within my own coaching practice and within this community, one, the silver and the pedagogue, they switch places all the time. Okay, keep that in mind. So I'm not really sure. The other thing is, too, each individual person is different. You have to keep track of where their minds are in masculinity and femininity, because based on the masculine sides of their mind and the feminine sides of the mind, they may decide to choose one of these types of relationships more often than the other. Nurture plays a huge part in these decisions. But it would seem that based on human nurture, the bronze pair ends up being everyone's favorite choice because it covers all of the bases. It really, truly covers all of the bases. So just keep that in mind. Let's talk about Chase's opinion. This is where I rank them for my own self. Okay? Chase's opinion. Here's Chase's opinion right here on the board. Based on my human nurture within my life, this is the order of relationships that I would choose. Obviously, I'm married to an ESTP. My wife is not a typical ESTP. She's extremely INFJ focused. She is the wisest woman I've ever met in my life, even though she's significantly younger than I am. And she's amazing. If the end of the world was going to happen, I wouldn't want anyone else by my side other than her. She's an exquisite woman in like literally every way. And I have no choice but to love and respect her, and I learn so much from her on a daily basis, and I would absolutely die for her. And, you know, if she never came into my life, this is technically how I personally, through my human nurture and the things that I have experienced in my life, this is how I would personally order these kinds of relationships. And this is actually fundamentally how romantic compatibility works. So look at the reality order of the data that I've collected based on people in my coaching practice, compare it to my order. Think about it for yourselves. What's your guys' order? And why did you arrive at that conclusion, right? You guys really, really need to think about this, you know? For me, like I'm able to, I know type, I'm able to communicate my way through emotional incompatibility very easily. Cognitive emulation, the works, of course, I'd be able to really get the absolute most maximum benefit from a pedagogue relationship. So of course it's going to be my first choice, right? In this, with obviously Railgun being the absolute first choice there is. And then bronze pair being second, and then silver pair being third, golden pair being fourth because it's same quartet, and I've had a lot of bad experiences there, but I know that it's still better than a benefactor, and it's way absolutely better than an enigma. But again, this is my own personal bias as a result of my own nurture. Remember, 100% of all human beings are biased. There's no such thing as unbiased, and if you're really looking for unbiased, you're just being dishonest. So keep that in mind. This changes. I don't think it's necessary for me to go through the type grid, but keep this in mind. Notice something about a pedagogue relationship in this case. So I'm pragmatic, right? Railgun is pragmatic. However, this is affiliative, right? This is pragmatic. Pragmatic, affiliative, and then pragmatic. Notice how there's a skew here. If you take all of the attributes of the type grid and you actually, and I mean all of them, and actually start attaching them to each of the different levels within the compatibility that you write out for yourself, you'll start to see a pattern of preference. And that pattern of preference actually exposes how your human nurture is actually manifesting and expressing itself right now for yourself within your current age. As you get older, as you potentially have more relationships, or as things impact you with your family, etc., obviously that can change, right? So, yes, dessert first. Yes, guys, I had dessert first. So anyway, this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to present romantic compatibility mostly to the public, because of just how freaking confusing it is. And you have to have such a high knowledge of this science already that it's really only appropriate to present to Ruby conference people who have gone through the rest of the rest of the content potentially, and understand the terminology and understand all these things, because romantic compatibility is an advanced form of Jungian analytical psychology. It's an advanced form. It is advanced, okay? Do you guys not see where I'm coming from here? How could I really go to this level publicly on YouTube and explain this to everyone? I just can't, because there's so much data to keep track of in order to be able to properly assist people with their relationships. Luckily, I have it memorized, and when I'm assisting people in my coaching practice, I'll even tell people, based on everything that I'm hearing from you and your nurture and everything in your life, this is the kind of relationship I recommend for you. And I give them like a list. Here's my recommended relationships for you to consider. There are times I tell people to go for their golden pair. There are times I tell people to not go for their golden pair. It happens a lot. And remember what the third list here, cognitive synchronicity would say that the golden pair is on top, and it would actually be, through cognitive synchronicity, it would be gold, silver, bronze, enigma, then pedagogue, then benefactor. That's what the order would be according to cognitive synchronicity. But cognitive synchronicity, when it contends with human nurture and quartets, it changes people's decisions. Nurture really severely matters. This is why people typically almost always get married to their bronze pair. Like 7 out of 10 times they're married to their bronze pair. It's super, super common. And a marriage with the golden pair is actually a bit rarer, right? Even though on paper, through cognitive synchronicity, everyone, matches up and lines up perfectly. So nurture changes this at an even deeper level. It's one thing for me to be able to tell people about cognitive synchronicity and teaching on YouTube. It's a completely whole other thing for me to walk people through romantic compatibility. And I've only given you 6 pieces that affect romantic compatibility. There's also the 4 pillars of romantic compatibility, which we talked about in a previous Ruby conference. Those are coming into play as well. So there's so much here to keep track of. And it's just, to be able to keep track of it, everyone is different. I'm just trying to show you guys why people are different. And the answer is human nurture. But look at what human nurture has when you look at the statistics for society. Bronze, silver, pedagogue, golden, benefactor, enigma. The order is different. And even then, silver and pedagogue switch. They switch all the time. So just keep that in mind. I mean, in some cases, you could also argue that benefactor and enigma also switches as well. But pedagogue is so powerful that, it's just, it's in there, So yeah, sometimes in my stats, golden pair and benefactor has switched. It's rare, but enigma is always on the bottom of the list, always. And silver and pedagogue switch often. Golden pair and benefactor sometimes. So it's just how the data goes. We're actually going to be collecting a lot of data on people in the community in the future from people who have been verified, and publishing a lot of this data to make it available to everybody, just to kind of see where things really are. We're only going to publish data that we actually 100% know about. No guessing. So it'll be verified. Verified by me if necessary. We're definitely going to be working hard to that end. So, but anyway, so that concludes the April 2020 Ruby conference. I would now like to turn this over to Q&A. So if you guys have any questions involving romantic compatibility and what I've presented this evening, please, by all means, now is the time. So I may have a little bit of this too while you guys are thinking about what potential questions you may have, as I have this awesome oregano sage chicken. Any questions? Apparently we don't have questions tonight. Am I talking to a wall here? Is anyone there? Anything? Wow, this is really good. Okay. Domesday came in. Do you think cognitive focus is the key to a preference or silver pedagogue, shadow focus towards pedagogue, and vice versa? Excellent question. So, cognitive focus absolutely matters to a silver pair. It absolutely does. Just like it would to a golden pair. It really, really does. Because again, the conveying of respect, because it would be hard to convey respect if both of them were shadow focused or both of them were subconscious focused, because it could create a little bit of competition. I have noticed some pedagogue relationships where both people are shadow focused and both people are subconscious focused, that it actually still works. And the reason why is because of the conflict provided by the emotional compatibility. Most of everybody's attention is on that, more so than their cognitive foci. And then based on that, they're actually able, through nurture, change their focus to eventually one of them will be shadow focus and one of them will be subconscious focus, because they're both improving each other's lives on a regular basis as a result of their intimate relationship. So it does not matter as much from a pedagogue standpoint, but it absolutely matters from a silver standpoint. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that question, Domes. Thank you very much about that. I'm actually going to make sure that I write that down as well on the whiteboard here for sure. Named My Taco asks, what about friendships? So with friendships, I have to defer to social compatibility, which is the content presented in season 12 playlist. That talks the most about friendships there and walks through those kinds of relationships. Friendships are interesting because they're a mishmash of face-to-face and shoulder-to-shoulder relationships. Romantic compatibility is literally face-to-face relationships primarily, right? Where it's pretty even from friendships. Shmoney, he said, you said that since you are FI Trickster that we should probably take this with a grain of salt. Would you believe that this holds up well with FI people, particularly with high FI? The red list, I would say, definitely would hold up well with FI people, yes. I'm saying the part of this that I'm saying to take with a grain of salt is my blue list, because I'm just showing you guys, you know, and even my data, take it with a grain of salt too, seriously. Because like I said, silver and pedagogue can change, benefactor and golden pair can change, and I'm only limited based on my sample size, which is not very much. I mean, my sample size is probably around 1,200 people, you know, so it's, and that includes spouses, you know, within that list. So it changes all the time. I just know that consistently bronze is number one, and by a large margin, consistently it is. So, Marble, I've noticed a lot of STJ, SFJ relationships. How would you approach communicating the potential issues of these types of relationships to the couple? Well, I've actually had some people come to me for that, and I've even advised those people to straight up get a divorce because they don't have any sexual compatibility. I am against divorce. I am very against it. But sometimes people's hearts are just hard and there's just no avoiding it. And then it's because, I mean, how do those relationships even start? They're usually started like high school sweethearts, or they're started because of arranged marriage, or they're started because of pressure that they were given within their church, or something when some kind of external pressure that happened when they were really, really young that put them in that position. And because they had no sexual experience whatsoever, they are almost always have very little sexual experience, or that they are each other's only sexual experience. And because they don't know any different, they end up having that relationship. Or they take on traditional masculine feminine mating rituals where men, for example, are expected to initiate with a woman, which is actually stupid for an introverted sensing man to do. It's also really stupid for an extroverted or for an introverted sensing woman to do as well. It's because SI users should never initiate. Because if they initiate with somebody, they're taking on the role of NI user in the mating ritual of initiation and first contact with somebody, right? You meet someone at the bar. Oh, that guy's cute. I'm going to go initiate with him. If you're an SI user and you see this guy that looks cute and you initiate with him, chances are he's a fellow SI user. And you've just destroyed, you've ruined your relationship already. Just day one, right? So you don't want to do that. So recognize, like, that's why dating tips, which is the last conference we did. You make sure that you are, taking on the appropriate roles at the beginning when you're following your mating rituals, your dating rituals. Be like, hey, if you're an NI user, it's your job to initiate. I don't care if you're an introvert or an extrovert. If you're an NI user, it's your job to initiate. If you're an SI user, it's your job to sit and wait and make yourself as desirable as possible so people approach you. You just have to position yourself. It's like going fishing, basically. Okay? You put out a hook, hoping an NI user will get hooked on it. And the NI users are looking for the best bait, basically. The best fishing rod to get caught on, essentially. That's how it works. But for an STJ, SFJ relationship, they have emotional compatibility, but they don't have any sexual compatibility. So over time, their relationship is just going to crumble. It's just inevitable, as near as I can tell. Because then they have to rely on their shadow parts of their mind, and they probably don't very often have sex at all. I'm a person that maintains that in a marriage, you need to be having sex every single day without failure, and no more than like every other day. If you're having sex every 4 days, you have a shitty marriage. Like that's just the bottom line. You have a shitty marriage. 3 days, that sucks. 2 days, okay, yeah, things happen, but really you should be having sex every day. You really should. And you need to be in a relationship where you would actually want to have sex every day, just as much as they would. And that's important. You need to have that optimization. It's super, super key. Because without having that intimacy, you're not building the appropriate neural pathways, which you just have to have, in order to keep things together. So, Marble, I'm not entirely sure how best to answer your question because I typically don't advise people to stay in those kinds of relationships because they compete each other for each other's comfort. And then they end up having to take turns in the bedroom as to who's on top and who's on bottom. When if you have an SE user paired up with an SI user, it's just natural and you don't have to worry about it. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, Shmoney, all you have to do is initiate. That's all you got to do. You go up to one and be like, hey, tell me a story. Just randomly. Yeah, Marcelina's like, the waiting game isn't exactly a blast either. It really, really isn't. You just have to position yourself and make yourself available. It's weird. I've always just tried impressing chicks to walk up to me. Yeah, it's because you're behind the scenes background type and trying to, and you're behaving like an NE user. You're not an NE user, Shmoney. You're behaving like one, and that's why you're having no results. Behave like an ISFP and go up and initiate. Like, I've had a lot of ISFPs in my time initiate with me. The last ISFP who initiated with me, I threw her out of my life because she insinuated that I break up my marriage and she'll break up her marriage so that we could be together or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, not going to happen. Also, stop being a hoe. Get out of my life. But she initiated. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, you do have to initiate. You are the NI user. Learn more about this from March 2020 Ruby conference. I talk about this in length, the dating tips. Okay, so Name My Taco, who says, wait, but Chase, if you should wait to have sex with someone that you would die for, male to female, how would you know your sexual preferences? It's very easy to know what those are. Because remember, if naturally people have sexual compatibility if they're playing their roles appropriately. And they play their roles appropriately according to the dating tips that I did. If you follow those dating tips exactly, chances are they're going, if you're an SI user, they're an SE user. If you're an SE user, they're an SI user. It won't even matter. It'll just be perfect chemistry as is. You don't have to worry about that sexual experience whatsoever. Would getting a puppy make an any SI user more desirable? No, not necessarily. Actually, having a puppy or a cat or something like that is kind of more on like an SE user or a Templar type per se. Um, like philosophers and Templars are really into animals, but Crusaders and Wayfarers aren't really that much. Crusaders are the least into animals of all the types, mostly because they're getting tired of getting saddled with the responsibility of taking care of them when someone else in the family brings in the animal. Um, Off question, but is the personality test ready? I expect to release it on May 1st. That's our current goal. Releasing the personality test on May 1st, Dr. J. We actually decided that last night. Yes, I guess this might explain why most of the girls ask me out were SE users. That's exactly why. Shmoney, please, God Almighty, go to the March 2020 Ruby conference at csjoseph.live/Patreon and watch the entire video, please. You will be dialed in immediately and know exactly what to do. But yeah, Taco, just have faith in it. If you have faith in the system, it will produce for you, and you won't have to worry about that. And besides, if she's telling you she wants sex, you just be like, look, I haven't decided if I'm willing to die for you yet. And then you just be like, okay, yeah. She should respect that. If she doesn't respect that, she's a hoe. And you have to respect that because you're a man, right? It's your responsibility. All right, so Vile asks, in a bronze pair, would the nemesis function have any issue, conflict, misunderstanding with their partner's trickster? No, because the nemesis function doesn't have to worry about a trickster. The trickster is so unaware that it's never a threat to the nemesis function. That's why the bronze pair is so great, Official Dr. J, do we get to test it first or beta? Yes, you guys do get to test it first. Yes. Patrons get to test it first. We will make it available. We only make patrons know about it. We won't release it to the public for maybe a few days, maybe a week. So yes, patrons will be able to do it first, and I expect that to be going live Friday night on the 1st of May. The link will be publicly available for anyone to go to the test, but we're only going to tell patrons about it, basically. So yeah. Did I answer your questions? Nade my taco. Did I answer your question? Marble, did I answer your question? I'm open. Okay, going back to my reason earlier, is the reason why my wife wouldn't want to have sex would be because her NI child isn't desiring my any hero. Yes, that's correct. You also have to look at some nurtural components about sexual behavior. Women typically cannot have sex if they're not relaxed. So if they're not relaxed, are they overloaded? Are you actually helping? Or how are you as a man contributing to her being relaxed? Because the less things that are in her head, the more she's open, and sex may even be her idea at that point because there's nothing else left for her to do. The more shit that's in her head, especially if she's a Templar types have it real bad. They have it the worst, actually. The more stuff in a Templar type's head, the more, and as a woman, the less likely she's going to have sex because she's got so much shit going on. And it's funny because Templar types end up with philosophers, and philosophers have a tendency of being super lazy and not getting anything done. And then the philosophers complain about not getting any sex when the reality of the situation is because they're not doing anything to lift a finger to actually help their wives out while their wives are trying to manage all this shit inside their heads. You see what I'm saying? So do your duty by your woman and make sure that she is as relaxed as possible by making sure everything else is handled. You know what I'm saying? And if I am desirable, does that turn on her and I child? Yes, it does, Dr. J. Yes, it does. We got triplets and a 4-year-old. Well, that's the problem. Literally, that's the problem right there. It used to be people who would live in villages and have so many adults to take care of so many children at the same time, like wet nursing and everything, that men could have as much sex as they wanted with their wives because their wives would just farm out their children to other women within the village, and it wouldn't matter, and they just all take turns watching over the children. But we don't have that in this day and age. We have this bullshit xenophobia amongst our race, and because of that, we've lost those tribal privileges, And then because of that, because of how xenophobic we are, we don't have that advantage. And then as a result, all of the work ends up being on the woman, which means she can't do it, which is just bullshit, quite frankly. Name my taco. I wholeheartedly agree with the frequency of sex. I see plenty of marriages, relationships where sex is almost non-existent. Yeah, and it's because they're either both SE users or they're both SI users. Because sex is literally boring to them, so why are they going to do it? You know what I'm saying? There's just no point, Dr. J, damn, what if I hire someone to do that stuff? Will it help? Yes, it will help. This is why maids exist. If she's literally handling a 4-year-old and triplets all by herself, potentially having a job, potentially being a wife at the same time, why the hell wouldn't you hire somebody for help? Get an au pair. Do yourself a favor. What if she's an SI user? You know what I'm saying? Get an au pair. Like, come on. Like, absolutely. Yeah, I know you hate doing the mundane stuff, but maybe your wife would appreciate you doing the mundane stuff so that she feels loved, right? Because remember, no greater love than when a man is willing to give up his life for his beloved. When that happens, or not willing, when he actually does, no greater love. If you're willing to give up your life for your woman, why wouldn't you help with the mundane stuff? Because you care about her that much. Jesus said, or actually the Apostle Paul said, love your wife as Christ loved the church, he who gave himself up for her, right? How can your woman submit to you and be willing to have sex with you if she's so fucking overloaded by all these children and all these responsibilities? So please, God Almighty, get an au pair or a maid or something. Do yourself a favor. Yeah, it's just the other cat cleaning dishes. Yeah, I get it. Oh yeah, if she's an ISFP, of course she's just overwhelmed. Of course. Yeah, and she's afraid of you abandoning her, and especially afraid of you thinking less of her. Of course, she's going to behave that way. Okay, Shmoney again. I know I'm being redundant, but Christ, I guess it was that simple all along. All those chicks I knew who liked me, but I never asked me out. Man. Yeah, that's right, Shmoney. That's all on you, bro. That's all on you. Best part is, Shmoney, if you can remember those chicks, and if they're still single, reach out to them on Facebook Messenger and initiate. Ding. No problem, Dr. J. I'm happy to help. All right, folks. We just passed the 20 minutes after the hour mark, so that is the end of the show. Thank you all very much for coming to the April 20 Ruby Conference, talking about romantic compatibility in the quartets. It was a little bit of a slow start, but I hope you guys see how valuable this is. Marcelino with a last-minute question, as always. In a bronze pair, is one's critic function judging the other's demon function a problem? No, it helps keep their demon function in line. It also actually helps build their inferior function. And Name My Taco, what are some more Bible verses to help ground your marriage? Wives, submit to your husbands. Here's one. The Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus goes off about how stupid divorce is. And then the exact following verse, he says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, which is informative for legal marriage is bullshit. How about you just have a marriage based on commitment? Let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? This is why I tell people, do not have sex with somebody unless you're willing to die for them, because it's a form of absolute commitment. If you're willing to die for someone, that's absolute commitment. You see what I'm saying? That's also a very interesting approach. Check out Matthew chapter 5. Also, check out what Jesus said about lust, about how men can commit adultery with women just by looking at them in a lustful manner. Or look about when the Pharisees and the teachers of the law come after Jesus. I think this is maybe John chapter 17 or Matthew chapter 17, I don't remember. Or maybe it's chapter 19. And it's like, they're like, well, is it lawful? Is it lawful for a woman to be married to so many men over and over? And who does she belong to in the kingdom of heaven? All his responses are within their context of lawful. Imagine what his response would be if the question was not within the context of lawful. Because there are all these, synagogue of Satan bullshit, viper, FITs or philosopher fucks who actually control the temple in those days and age. They're literally the freaking central bank. The little Federal Reserve, the little Jewish nation in those days of Israel. And Jesus pulls out a whip and beats the shit out of these people. Thank God. You know what I'm saying? That guy was tough. You know what I'm saying? So just so be aware of that. But yeah, really look at the context of what Jesus is saying, and because they ask him like, "Is it lawful?" And it's like, when he's talking about lawful, like, well, that's legal marriage, right? Lawfulness, right? It's not about like, where Jesus exists to fulfill the law. So Jesus, things are a little bit different instead of like the law per se. Understand the difference there. You know what I'm saying? So I get really heated about that stuff. Forgive me. So anyway, folks, we're out of time. Thanks for coming. Fantastic conference. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night for the next live stream. Gonna have another live stream tomorrow night. So with that being said, folks. Oh, and also name my taco. Read the book of Hosea. That'll do you a really big deal. Hosea is like, and also the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth, the book of Hosea are fantastic romantic books, especially Hosea. Hosea is amazing. Hosea is like a crusader prophet who has to prove loyalty to his woman, etc., who is obviously an INFJ. So it's like a crusader type. I think he's an INTP or an ENTP, but his woman is definitely an INFJ. So check out that relationship. It's very interesting. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.